Nice, good stuff, right? But all right, welcome to Fallout Podcast, episode 162. You cannot legislate against wrongful encouragement, aka it's a futile fall showdown, but not really tonight, sort of. It is the first of the Mark E. Smith solo slash collaboration semi-finals. So we have 10 songs that have already made it through from the dregs and the gems. And we'll be pitching 5 showdowns, so 5 head-to-heads, and we will see what makes it through to the final, which will be a final with 10 songs, which I don't know how that's going to work, but we shall see. But joined as always by the Pemberton Walker in his WFMU t-shirt. How you doing, Alistair?
One of many WFMU t-shirts. Yeah, I'm good. I remember when we first started doing these, and it'd be just a bloody nightmare. You'd send like 200 songs, and by the time you were done, your brain was just scrambled.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Will to live.
Yeah, but there was some really interesting stuff in there, and I got to know those things like PandaPanzer, which I just never would have got into. But yeah, there were times when we all lost the will to live. As much as some of the Blaney and collabs had their moments, there's also bits that didn't sit quite as well with us. And Dan, joined by the summer of Dan, the fall of Dan, the winter of Dan Content. How are you doing?
Feeling very cultured after a run-in with Alistair's best friend's prolapse last week.
Oh, yeah.
And very much looking forward to this. I find this has been quite revitalising. I've enjoyed this MES solo.
Yeah, well, the difference this time around definitely was that having, 10 songs that had at least been through the filter. These songs are, even the worst of these are not as bad as some of the shit that's got through to the third round of our regular competition. So it's like we're on relatively solid, if completely on solid ground. But what we have then is That Sound Wiped by Von Sudenfeld up against Back to Animals by Janssen Werner of Mouse on Mars. So 2 Mouse on Mars tracks there. Von Sudenfeld Fledermaus Can't Get It up against Von Sudenfeld Chicken Yeah Mass. You may be seeing a pattern here. Dose up against Mutations. So the Pete Waterman sponsored single up against Ginger from the Wild Hearts side project. Molecular Meditation, a 20-minute track made by Janssen Werner again, and quite a revelation, that album, actually, as we came across it. And that is up against the PandaPanzer very first opening of the album, which is a duet poem between Eleni and Mark. And then we're rounding up with the 2 Von Sudenfeld songs up against each other, which are Dearest Friends, the mathy bossa, cheeky chappy stuff up against a bass-heavy, flooded track where he mocks Sven Väth for pissing in his bed. All right, so anything to say before we launch into it?
Yeah, I feel sad that we've not got so many of his actual solo songs, but I guess... did many make it to semi-final 2? I know that's a bit of a spoiler.
I can let you know. It's like semi-final 2. Even when I find where I've put the rest of the MES songs, I'll tell you. I think there's a few more that have made it through to the next semi-final. Yes, so the other one has The Horror in Clay, which is his Lovecraft little play. It has that Long Thin Killy song in Spiral Carpets, that Gorillaz one, Ghost Digital with INR, Inch. An enigmatic dream, another one from Boris Neelyman. So yeah, and this was totally random. So the next one has only a couple of 2 Von Sudenfeld, and then that funny VS cancelled where he reads out the letter from when Domino dropped them, which is again from that Janssen Werner record. So there's only 4 tracks on that Janssen Werner album, and MES isn't on one of them, so all 3 of the others got through, which is startling. But I want to dig in a little bit more as to whether it really counts. It's one more step away from the Von Sudenfeld stuff. But all right, but let's jump into it first with That Sound Wiped up against Back to Animals.
I was in summer, unknown town. and we went down the recline of the unnamed streets. Some town unknown. Till I've been in my garden, I just kept singing. Then I said, I've got to go down to this pitch bar. Yellow hats, I take the left, boy, and you take the right. So
Beautiful. Not a place I thought we would be when I first suggested a Fall Showdown podcast, but I'm very delighted to be here. Alistair, I come to you first, if you don't mind. That sound wiped and back to animals. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I am liking both. Hence them being here today, I suppose. That sound white, it kind of like picks up a bit in the middle, but I don't know, it's lacking something most of the time. It gets really interesting with the squelchy synths. In the sort of like Tetris-y, well, it reminds me of sort of Tetris or something like that, kind of like computer game sound to it. Reminds me a bit of Sleaford Mods to like when it starts off. Takes about 2 minutes to build up and then kind of drifts off. Back to Animals, just wrote a lot of nonsense here about Skinner and behavioralism, but yeah, it's interesting. I do like it towards the end when it gets big sounding. And yeah, the glitchy kind of industrial slightly feel to it, like that. It's like it's having hiccups and a migraine at the same time, but in a good way.
Yeah, have you ever heard of a guy called Mark Fell?
Don't think so.
So he did a song called, is it an album called Insubstantiability or something like that, and it's very similar to this, almost maybe one step further, where there's very bright sounds that are kind of like glitched up, but not quite like Oval did it, where it's much more composed, like I think this, where there's it's almost like bright colors just kind of emerge and are looped, and then you've got these periods of kind of more, I guess, darker or quieter. But I'll tell you more about my thoughts after we've heard from Dan. Where do you stand on these two?
I really like that sound wiped. I think if we recall back to when we were having a little Mouse on Mars segment, we all seemed to generally agree that they were quite good, but they were missing something. And given that this is basically a remix of their own song with a really good singer on it, I think we found what it was missing, like a personality, a little bit of something to drive it.
Yeah.
I like, and I don't mind the Pro Tools in his voice and looping the singing bit. It's really good because it does have a nice kind of development as it goes along. It's not just like a kind of a beat that he sings over. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it just feels very considered and interesting. It also kind of feels like the 12-inch version. It sort of seems to have a bit of flab towards the back where you might want to mix it into another song. But yeah, like nice lyric, very kind of Dibaudian flaneur walking around the city. The man with the yellow hats.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Let me read a few. Let me derail you for a second while I read a few. I was in some unknown town and we went down the decline of the unnamed street. At a traffic circle, a man in a yellow helmet on a mountain bike pulled up to me. I went along with it at first. We started singing. I was in my garden. I said, "You don't look like a goddamn singer-songwriter to me." He put his arms around my neck. It wasn't nice, an iron grip I've never felt before. He said, "All the people are leaving. Please don't leave me."
Beautiful, wonderful. And as a counterpoint, I don't like Back to Animals. I kind of like the sound world that it builds at the beginning, where it's kind of like that beat, but it sounds like a kind of like a typewriter. which I think is, very appropriate. I just don't think there's a lot to get stuck into here. It's sort of, there's this mode of work that's kind of what I would call like art music. And this is, I feel like this entire EP or album or whatever falls into it. It's like very linear in its composition. It's like, here's a sound for a bit, and here's another sound for a bit. And it's got the sounds that I hate the most, which I would call like scrunching digital junk. I find that kind of impossible to listen to, and I didn't feel MES added a whole lot here. So I think it's a fairly clear one for me, this one.
That's just I think there's no accounting for taste, and it's like, I don't know why I love those sounds, because they're just, and Dan Deacon and a few other people like that kind of stuff, where it's like, you've just sampled something really bright and then just looped it and sampled something. I'd say Animal Collective go a step too far for me. I'm not really there, but if you bring it back to, say, like I said, the Mark Fell stuff, or even some of the Oval, where they are bright, glitchy stuff, and it is just like, here's a loop for a bit, and it breaks up a bit. And there's Autek do some of that at times, but obviously they're much more complex with it. I was a sucker for it. There's just a few things that I'm a sucker for, and that kind of like art music is one of them.
Still music though, isn't it, Brendan? Even if it's art music, and there's a lot going on to hold my interest in this one. It's lots of textures going on. I didn't find it like predictable. It kept on shifting. It was interesting.
I don't necessarily mean like art music as in all music that's kind of like radical composition. I just think like, is the actual EP is for an installation, isn't it? Like the main track is, and it feels like it's kind of considered music for place and location rather than for some kind of more conventional listening pleasure. I think that's what I'm.
It could be
having a dig at.
Which is, it's fine. It's for me, it's more that it feels like they do feel like real tracks, and the criticism of some of that sort of music is that it doesn't necessarily feel like it goes anywhere. Or reason why I'm not a big fan of, say, ambient stuff as well is because I do feel that, again, it's just the taste, right? There's stuff in there that I feel I can get my teeth into, but I normally in quite short bursts. It's almost like just picking through a box of like fun things for a while. Aldo, was you going to say something else there? Or?
I'm just saying it's basically like a soundtrack. Well, because it's for the installation. It's a soundtrack to the installation. So it is more like soundtrack music, which is meant to be a bit more kind of not trying to be centre of attention, but it's there to, so a compliment the thing that he's going with.
I think so. And Smith's, it sounds like they've, it's almost like a PandaPanzer like segment that has been then remixed or whatever, and I think that's where I agree. And this is where we come down to on Von Studenfeld. I don't know how much Smith has to do with it, but it does sound like they may have worked around his sample, and especially if you listen. So the first song they did was Why That Sound, and then Cut the Gain is on the B side, and they've used bits from both of those tracks in this new version of That Sound Wipe, and they've been really smart. So not only have they chosen bits that work well with Mark's voice, which makes it better than the two originals, because I think what we're saying is like one of the even the Mouse on Mouse tracks that had vocals, they didn't have a vocalist like Smith, so they were sort of generic, like dancey vocals, and he didn't necessarily add anything to it. And I do wonder, like, did this start with Smith's sample and build up instruments from there? Because it does sound like there might have been an element to that, and that is why I'd say I'm leaning towards the Von Studenfeld and rather than the Janssen Werner in this round, because also there's just a longer version of this same thing coming up later, which for you I imagine is much, much worse, but for me is much, much better. But let me play let me play a bit of let me play a little bit of the two original tracks that it came from. So Smith, what year was this? So 2005 was when they first did 2004 when they first did the double A side of Wipe That Sound, Cut the Gain on Sonic, and then they a year or two later they redid it for when they decided to do this Von Studenfeld kind of project.
Circle, a man in a yellow helmet on Mountain Bay pulled up to me. I said, you don't look like no goddamn singer-songwriter to me. We went down the recline. Cut the game.
They're quite nice. I mean, I think they definitely took the best elements of both of those. Now, what does the Stir era and Stuart think? Where are they? Alrighty.
Is Snare still coming for my job here? Is he still
Snow's still
hot on
after
my
you.
heels?
He's gunning for you. Although I'm not sure how much he's on board with some of this stuff. So he says, one of the slightly more pedestrian VS numbers, the singing feels a bit cobbled on about Wipe That Sound wiped. Stuart said, good stuff. I love that soft, flabby and weird kick and the mechanical inevitability of how it unfolds. I think the weak point here is MES, and I found the whole narrative thing sort of a guide track. I think I said this last time, but I do love the ice iron grip. Yeah, I mean, it's what kicked off the von Sudenfeld idea, and I do love the cheeky Mouse on Mars kind of melody, and the shouting, the screams that come in at like about 2 minutes in. It loses steam after a couple of minutes, really. There's a few nice things, but all in all, not too bad. But shall we take a vote? Because we got 5 votes to come to, and Dan is under the cosh to get to a football tournament. Dan, which way are you going?
It's that same wipe. It's that for me, thanks.
All right. Al, which way are you going?
Eric Burdon, Back to Animals.
Fair enough. I am going to go with Wipe That Sound, because I said I do think the molecular meditations is just a bigger version of this same thing to some degree. What have we got for Stuart? Stuart has gone back to Animals 3 and That Sound 2. So, and as Snare does not vote, he just gives his opinions, we are tied and we do have to go to the fingers. So, out of 3, what are we doing for Wipe That Sound?
Well, I actually wrote a thing that I wrote 2.5 in my document in case I had to hand it over to you.
All right.
So 2.5.
That's fine. So 2.5, 2 for Al, 2 for me. So that's 6.5, and Stu has gone for 2 points. So that's 8.5 for the Wipe That Sound. And then for Animals, which way are we going?
Mine was 0.3.
Okay, well, I'm giving it 2. Al's giving it 3. Stu's giving it 3. 3, 6, 7, 8. 8.3. So Wipe That Sound goes through by a nose. Such is life. The next showdown, I can't remember what it is, but I'm sure it's delightful. I'm sure it involves
Ledermaus against Chicken Yamas.
Yes, right? As long as it's German, you won't hear no complaining. No VPN. It's global. Protect your data. 74% off.
Is this a MES lyric?
Yes.
You know.
I can't get it now, but I can get it. Walked up the stairs. Walked up the stairs. Can't get it now. I get it. I can't get it now, but I can get it.
They said, boil the chicken. I said no, I had to boil the chicken. I had to
Chicken and chips off the bone. Dan, coming to you. Surely this is an easy one.
Yes, it is an easy one. I mean, I like both of these. Like, I don't think I don't think I would be upset if the wrong one went through. But I think Chicken Yamas is a little bit weaker in its composition and what it is. I also think on the record, as we're going to find out later today, there's a better song that does this kind of thing, which we're increasingly finding, I think, with the Mouse on Mars ones. It's like there's always like another kind of one that's doing that exact same thing better. But it's a pleasant listen, you know. I like it. I like the bit where his voice goes high and scream, like that's funny. But F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T is a all day long banger with a video that makes my willy feel funny.
Well, it surely is. And like I think we may have said last time, how delightful would it have been if Smith had been tempted to do, you know, It's a Hard Life or whatever that Queen song is, where they all just ran into the dresses, what Freddie said. I forgot
Listening
to say what.
Go on. Just listening to it again, then like, it makes me. Whilst it presents as kind of almost like a electro version of a sort of a glam kind of banger, there's a lot more going on, I think, in the production. Like there's this kind of like thing where like the beat goes like dun 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 dun, dun, and then sometimes it doesn't miss that one at the end. And there's just this like little rhythmic underpinning that actually keeps you guessing a bit. I think it's a bit more complex than it presents.
I think so. There's bits going on, and this with the chicken and the F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T. The thing is that one thing that most of us are definitely always doing is that there's always variation in all of those bars. That they're not the kind of band that just throws a loop on there and then it's 3 minutes later. So they're always playing around with stuff, whether that's the EQs or the actual rhythms. And this is what I love is I'm a sucker for any slowing down of vocals and that kind of stuff. And so I think this might be the only example in Smith's entire catalog where someone slows his vocals down. And so for me, that in itself is a winner Chicken Yamas. But I forgot to say what Snare said about Back to Animals, because he did like it, and he would have put it through. And therein is the irony.
I mean, if you want to like go back on that and put it through,
I want this to be authentic. The Snare said, brilliant rhythmic headfuckery. Smith is almost the most conventional thing in the mix. That is what I always crave from the Nagel era electronic stuff. And absolutely nowhere in the catalogue with any of that Jan Sandberg. Nothing got even close to that. And that in itself is a delight. But again, does it really count? Who knows? Does any of this count? Stuart said about F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T and Yarmas. He said, F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T is an obvious standout from the record, banging electro clash sounding farts with everything getting some propulsion and punch and a great bit of electronic pop. About Chicken, he says, F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T is better, but this one has my heart regardless. I love the funky guitar bits chopped up against the squelchy tones underneath the Mez on perfect form. His yells of yama 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 he filled me with childish joy every time I hear it. Chicken for the competition. Yes. Alistair, what are your thoughts on these two?
In which what everybody else has said. Can't get it. Really funny video. Really good handling of the vocal, like the production, and it reminds me of stuff that I was listening to like 20 years ago on Shit Catapult records.
Yeah.
Chicken Yamas, well played. It's weird thing about Chicken. I've got like a couple of LPs that are all based on Chicken. What's the fascination?
It's like chicken and cheese and fish are go-tos for anything. And monkeys.
Monkeys, maybe, yeah, Monkey's Brain. But yeah, it reminded me a bit of Beck or something like that. It was all right.
Yeah. You ever listen to The Chicken in Black by Johnny Cash?
I may well have done.
It's out there. What I don't need is a fucking 15-minute advert for whiskey, though.
Bad, so the doctor checked me and he shook his head. He said, I'm sorry to tell you, but your body's outlived your brain.
He said, I know this doctor in New York, son, and he'll fix you right up with a brand new one. So the head doctor met me when I stepped down off of the train.
Cutting a long story short, I think they put a chicken's brain into Johnny Cash's body, and then he dresses up as a superhero for the rest of the video.
Nobody reached for that door.
It's like a paracetamol advert or something.
A lady
Oh, it's bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers.
said, flag your stage, money, your watches and ring.
The bottom of the barrel for Johnny, but I love it. I'm there with him every day. I'm in that bush with that cake with Johnny Cash. Yes, well, apparently when one of Mouse was asked about chicken yamayas, he said it's an acid blues polka about a vegetarian who can't boil his chicken. And Smith helpfully says, they said boil the chicken. I said I cannot boil the chicken. I had to modify the chicken. Yama, 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 yama. Hey. And so I am a bit of a sucker for acoustic loops, even though they are definitely a very cheap trick. And this, like Mug Art or 9x6 Generator, predictable big beats. But is it possible not to love a song where Mez is shouting and screaming and talking about chicken? I don't think. It's silly filler. But the fact that he's got so far in this competition probably says more about the quality of Mez's collabs than anything else. Yes. Snur says, Fledermaus is a regular on my party playlist and possibly my best chance of getting mates to entertain the thought of listening to Smith's carping. Excellent. Chicken Yemas, on the other hand, this and pumpkin soup and mashed potatoes can both fuck off. Smith is not someone I'm going to take nutritional advice from. It's apparently, so I do love the kind of dark funk of Fledermaus. I think it is possibly the most successful, just straight up, although Flooded is great. I think the ones that got through to this point were good choices, the kind of bangers, if you will. It's with or without the mash. It's Fledermaus, and then Ronnie got through in the other half, and where Smith's just being funny and silly and shouting, and they've just done an awesome job. So people compared this to like a Swiper LCD sound system, which I can see, and it's like when Aphex Twin decided he could do better than Firestarter and made Come to Daddy. It's sort of like they did it, but in the end, it doesn't really sound anything like LCD sound system. But it's brilliant. It's great, and as someone once pointed out, it should have been put into the Eurovision Song Contest. But it wasn't. But one day maybe it will be. So that's it. Let's take ourselves a vote, shall we? Dan, which way are you going?
Fledermaus can get it, as I said last time. I think. Oh God, I'm repeating. I'm turning into a dad.
Don't worry, you get a couple more chances to redeem yourself. Alistair, which way are you going?
Can't get it.
Yeah, I think it's tempting to throw one in for the chicken. But it's not the way it's going to be. But I think Stu might have gone that way. Fledermaus 2.5, chicken 5,000. I think he's just being silly there. But at least in this sense, the better of the two easily, in my opinion, went through. So we've got two Von Sudenfeld songs heading into the final, which, as we predicted right at the start, the final is literally just going to be that album. But maybe not. All right, moving on to our third showdown, which is no doubt even more Mouse on Mars related songs. But who knows?
Daytown. Shout.
Hammering us with these Uber adverts.
I thought they were selling children.
No, that's not legal anymore. An interesting pair up there indeed. So for me, the dose one, yeah, if I'm in the right state of mind and I'm picking through the Omega Music bargain bins and listening to the B-sides and the remixes of those Speed Garage cast-offs and stuff on the front cover of Beatmaster Mixmaster magazine. Maybe I'm in the right mood for it, but it's just a fairly generic kind of 90s synth, big beats, big bass line, nice little bit of acidy stuff towards the end, but it's pretty mild. And we know Smith did like this sort of stuff, and it's Pete Waterman endorsed dance music, so I don't really know what to say. Smith was interviewed and he said, I was really into Two Unlimited, one of the few groups I like, and I've been into dance music, and I think the record is really brutal. What I think is good about the record is it's really brutal, but it's got a Pete Waterman thing to it where it's really corny. It did make the Festive 50 though that year. And he goes on for ages because this is produced, of course, by Simon Spencer under Dose, and then later Keir Stewart and Simon Spencer, who was supposed to produce Levitate, were Inch. So this is just Simon Spencer, who did unfortunately pass away not too long after this. We've talked about that story many, many times, but as a piece of music, I don't think it's anything more than a novelty that Smith's on it. Whereas the other one, there's Cardiac's link to it. One of the lads from the Cardiacs played on it, and I think that's what's coming through, not the Wild Hearts element of it.
There's a Narcosis link to it as well.
A Narcosis link?
Yeah, Chris Grenfell, I think he was involved in it. He did vocals for Narcosis at the time.
Oh, very nice. But I mean, I think it's not as heavy as it could have been, of course, right? It's not. It's a pretty mild in terms of metal or grindcore or whatever it's trying to lean towards. But that nice Cardiac style chant that comes in, Smith's, it fits as he does with everything, no matter literally whatever he sits in, it works. And in his nonsense about shoelaces is brilliant. And who would have thought a duet between Smith and Ginger from the Wild Hearts could be what it is? But brilliant stuff. Dan, what do you reckon?
I enjoyed both of these. Plug myself in. I mean, I wrote a slightly withering comment, but I didn't mean it to be kind of mean or anything. It's like, it's a serviceable Jilted era B-side. It even has the same kind of like weird beat step that Poison by Prodigy, like the dum dum dum.
Oh yeah.
Dum. Right. And I said, yeah, serviceable Jilted era B-side with unknown singer. I hope he is okay. I think it's pretty good. Like it is, yeah, it's totally generic, but I mean, there's lots of like the Falls sort of engagement with dance that could be generic, but like Mez makes it not generic just by dint of his personality and style. I can't believe I'd never heard this Mutation record, and the reason is because I played in a band with like two of the world's biggest Wild Hearts and Cardiacs fans, and they'd never mentioned this to me. And I think because like John Poole played in both. I think that's the connection, and I think Ginger's just a big Cardiacs fan as well. But then I'm surprised that I liked this as much as I did, because I think it goes a bit pattern, and I'm not a big pattern guy. But I think it just hangs on, and like for slightly over compressed Brainiac metal, I think it works really well, but I think part of that is, again, Mez doing his magic to sort of bring it back down to some sort of stratosphere that I can engage with it. If this was like a generic metal guy, I would toss this in the bin, I think.
Yeah, but I still like that almost choral bit that comes in. It's really interesting. You didn't expect it, because a lot of these tracks is like Smith's the star, and there's not really anything else taken from it. Even the Mouse on Mars, there's a little bit of synth stuff in it, but yeah, if you remove Smith, there's not much to it. But I did like some of the scratchy kind of like the little break that had a little bit of some scratchy sounds, and it was only like, yeah, it was that Cardiacs thing when I read that. It's like, that makes sense now. Yeah, sweet. What do you reckon, Al?
Again, pretty much what you said. The Dose one, it's perfectly fine. It just doesn't really stand out, and I think there's better stuff like this with Mark Smith on it. But yeah, perfectly functional. And those lads did know how to kick a groove out. The Mutation thing, Right, I really hate anything melodic on anything that's kind of, grindy or deathy or anything like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that puts me off about most metal stuff, it's all the solos and shit like that, but the melodic backing vocals really, really are a bit wank. That's the kind of thing that makes me turn off straight away. But having said that, there was some really nice bits in it with the guitar. Nice hearing Mark Smith over a blast beat, even though it was a very tame blast beat. But yeah, it's all right. It's interesting, but the melodic bits killed it for me.
Alistair, are you a fan of Cardiacs, or are they anathema to you? You are? So the Cardiacsness didn't kind of like override that for you? Because that is what you get with the Cardiacs, that kind of choral sort of melodic.
I got to the Cardiacs for that. I don't not for like when it comes down to this kind of heavy sort of stuff. Like you mentioned, Mike Patton. I'm not a big fan of his stuff.
What's interesting is to know, like we've had more differences about this music than probably any of the Fall stuff. We listen to Fall stuff, and we're more or less all on board with it. But it's interesting that so many genres and styles have come up through this that are like, yeah, we can't fucking stand that. Whether it's like melodic, glitchy stuff, no melody over anything grind, and this is shit grind to start with, and it's like it's fun. It's good. It's good to be back in the mix. I also forgot to say what Stuart thought about Back to Animals, which I don't know where I was on that one. Stuart said this one's nice. The contrast between the sputter and spurt hat and synth sections and the spaced out MES parts is really effective. And then when the final section where the two are somewhat conjoined, it's almost blissful to these ears. But as for Plug Myself In, awful bloated sub-mid bass on this. It's a super blur covering everything. Other than that, it's a cracking track with MES, and it works so well against the breakbeat and the anemic 303 thing. Interesting. Where he says, love this track from Mutation. You can tell it comes from a mashup of different people and styles. Some of the guitar phrasing makes me think of some early Mars Volta, and contrasting what I assume is Ginger on the singy bits against MES on the ranty bits with occasional metal vox. I'd be happy to hear a few albums from this lineup. Interesting. No accounting for taste, is there? While the Snur says, big fan at the time of Plug Myself In, but dated. A production that gets something out of Smith's voice, something decent. Appliances are broken, nobody around them to fix them. Haunts me as I walk around the house. While Relentless Confliction by Mutation, he says, I guess sticking gurgling Mark on a lightweight grind track is not as stupid as an idea as you first might think, but it's actually still quite daft. So yes, it is vote time. Which way are you going, Al?
I'll go with Mutation despite the melodic bits.
Yes. How about you, Dan?
It was very close. I had 2.6 for Dose and 2.8 for Mutation.
Okay. And Stu has gone for Mutations, and so have I. So it's a rout in the end. And yeah, it's interesting because the Dose is probably the highest, even though it didn't really do anything. It did make the very, very bottom end of the charts, but it's the most recognizable non-Fall Smith thing out there. All right, so how are we doing for time, Dan? How long have you got?
About 20 minutes.
Oh, we might bring this in. So yeah, next two, probably back to some more Andy and Jan stuff, which can't really knock, can you?
I got that.
And these are very annoying. It's like a TripAdvisor thing.
Still impersonating.
I've seen that guy from that advert on what's that thing where they're not allowed to laugh?
Oh yeah,
Documental.
Actually, yeah, it's a fun one where they smack him on the arse. Yeah, yeah.
The schmucker of today, but not for Martin. When he shouted, the letters would literally appear. Marty was in fact... It is a Zoc-Cock-Shop.
Meditation. Good afternoon. I call.
Panda. as to Panda 2. Panda, animal. Panzer. Panda, Panzer. The outside flavorness of it. Film script. Synopsis.
Titel: Das Nacht aus Peinen weinen. Director: M.E. Smith.
A man
A man
called
called Craig moves
moves.
Man called Crag. We all know a man called Crag, don't we? Dan, I can't remember who I've gone to first, so apologies. But Dan, what do you reckon to these two?
I mean, your reticence to put Back to Animals in because there's a bigger one of these later is accurate. There's a bigger one and it's 4 times as long and just as bad. Yeah, like it's the music as well. I think Mez is doing like an interesting job, and it's a lovely recording of him. But I find the music gets on my last tit. Whereas I really, which is stupid, right? Because I mean, I really love the bit from PandaPanzer that you've edited. I think it's one of his funnier lyrics. I really the 10 I was born, age 20. That bit just cracks me up. Like I actually have an emotional response to that that's authentic, and I just like the layered, slightly lo-fi sound of it, whereas I feel like it's just Molecular Meditation is just a bit egg-headed for me. It's just a little bit, black turtleneck and like people who I hate in an art installation. It's just not for me. Whereas PandaPanzer is very much for me.
Panda to panda animal.
As to, it's the as to as well, like, and there's a rhythm with the words there that I just think is just quite seductive. Like I remember when I first heard PPP about 15 years ago, I was like literally jabbed it off like in anger, and I've really run the gamut with this one. I love it now. I find it quite wonderful.
That as a poem is and he was right to put it right at the beginning of the first thing he released as a spoken word, because it's front loading the album. You're like, where are all the other bangers? It's like, this is like 3 minutes of him and Eleni basically talking about around, and I wonder whether the film script they refer to is the one that Graham Duff mentioned that they'd written, because but they may have written several. It's and then at the end, but yeah, I was 10 years old when I was born, I was 20 when I died, Solomon Grundy resurrected on a Monday, etc., etc. It's beautiful.
But the 10, 20, 30 kind of reminds me of computer program as well, of that era kind of. So I think there's something quite interesting going on here with what he's referencing.
Coding and encoding, wasn't he, into our brains? But Alistair, what do you make of these two?
Well, the molecular meditation, it was all right. It gets a bit dull, I think. I definitely preferred the animals, Back to Animals to meditation. But, it does its job. But the PandaPanzer thing, there's something about it that I really like. I like the fact that it's not musical. You got things like the cassette turning over in the recording, and just it's little nuances like that appeal to me. It's definitely the kind of shit I like, and very fond of the PandaPanzer stuff on there. Going through the various rounds and listening to it. It's one that it's a difficult listen as an LP, but if you just take a track off it and listen to it on its own, it's bloody good.
Absolutely. There's a few very funny spoken word pieces on there that he's clearly curated, and then it's almost that the fact that he's got those instrumental and they've made it one big long piece that actually makes it seem like this insurmountable task to listen to it. Whereas if it had been like just a couple of those musical pieces with the sketches throughout, it would have been well more accessible for people to listen to. But still, it's got to be a small number of people that are prepared to listen to that. But between the two albums, this is an absolute highlight for me. The poem is absolutely top notch, and I could just listen to that all day. I said this is the hardest choice of the night because there's so much crossover. They're obviously totally different musically, but there's so much crossover in the terms of how Mez's voice is used in both of them. And there's with the molecular meditations, there's just other tones that add to it, and the big question is, the words aren't as strong in the Molecular, but the tones for me add so much more to it. And so yeah, Jan and Mez work so well together. I wonder what he would have thought of this, because it was released after he passed away, and I don't know to what extent he even got, like, I'm guessing to this he had no input whatsoever, that Janssen Werner just took it away and did as he will with it, which is, again, quite a bit of a cheat. Yeah. And there's some really nice words, and I started transcribing some of it. Martin was shouted when the letters would literally appear. It was in fact an apple of a different type of caliber. He was immobile. The first problem of most young American males is public speaking, according to the talking ducks of Russian television. Yeah, absolutely. Stuart says Molecular is a masterpiece of subtle movement and slow shift. I've listened to this one frequently since we first listened on the show, because it was a bit of a revelation, right? The first time we heard this, I think we all were very surprised by it, because it is a pretty unknown kind of piece. It has for me, this takes some of the ideas from PPP and similar stuff and does it properly to superb effect. It has a similar feel to some of the best music concrete from the early days, the best shit. While Stu says the intro part is the best part of the PPP because you haven't heard the same material 50 times, and the contrast of voice and time are somehow affecting, but it's no molecular meditation. Snur says the interaction between the two voices on PPP, probably Elena and Mark, works a treat, a nice little curio, where for Molecular, he says, feels properly in touch with some of the best 70s German experimentation, something I'm sure Smith would have secretly relished when he got the mix back through the post. I really think this is very good. Ooh, la la. So it is a vote, and it is the toughest of the evening. I am going to throw my vote into Molecular, as I threatened earlier. Dan, I think I know which way you're going, but
yeah, PPP for me.
Yeah, and it is tough for me not to put this through, because it essentially means that, other than the horror in clay, which isn't really Smith's words, oh no, I guess Enigmatic Dream's still in there, but this could be the last of Smith's actual solo to have a chance of going through. But we got to vote with our hearts. We're creatures of passion. That's all I can say. Alistair, which way are you going?
I'm going PPP.
And Stuart's gone Molecular. So we are going to fingers. Let's go Molecular. How many are we going for?
I had 1.5.
All right. I'm glad to see we're not doing the dirty deal there. Stuart has given Molecular 1,000 and PPP 2.5, but I'm going to count it as a 3 versus 2.5. So 3 from Molecular, 3 from me, 2 from Al. And what was yours again, Dan?
1.5.
1.5. So 3, 6, 7, 8, 9.5 for Molecular. And PPP, I'm also giving it 3.
2.4.
All right. So 3, 3. 2.5 and 2.4, 3, 3, 2.5 and 2.4, which gives us 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So PPP goes through on a technicality. So I fucked myself, didn't I, by not voting for the animals one. But
I mean, it still did. It did actually win when you count Snare's comments. So I mean, as I say, you should probably put it through because it did really win.
Here's what, and this is the kind of shit that Ezra would hate me for. I'm going to asterisk it and put it in just as an honorable mention in the final, just to make sure that we don't forget that Jan's out there working for us all night and all day. Although he has got a lot of other stuff through, but I kind of think Mouse on Mars is a bit more Andy than Jan, if that's not a controversial thing to say. All right, last showdown of the evening. Some more VS sounds. Adverts are going to be the death of me. Yeah, I know I should get an ad blocker. Fucking shut up.
To my dearest friends,
Flying high over the wire, ripped waves, flip in the sea. It's the sea. All of it.
Hi, Bucks, this club. I'm the DJ tonight. I'm the disc jockey tonight. It's the fucking bell. I flooded the club. About this club, I'm a DJ tonight. It got down it goes very fast. I bought this club tonight. But it was me who broke the goddamn club. The chorus of the 250 champion.
Now that is rock and roll. Suicide for the 2029s. Alistair, Alistair, what do you reckon to that bossa nova one and that other one about Sven Väth?
Davis Friends, like, it was quite nice. You know, they reminded me, it was sort of a bit African sounding. Alifaki Toure, I was thinking. But with a bit of the Americana in there. You know, it's a good chill out tune, late nights, Mark Smith playlist stuff. So I think you won't be too surprised if you heard it on Late Night Radio 3. And Flooded, again, it's well, we're in the Flat Eric territory here, aren't we? But I do like it for the you know, the industrial noises and nice groovy beats. The live version's good because there's more bad noise in it. It's, you know, it could be harder, it could be more in your face, but they've got a nice balance going on. I quite like some of the vocal effects. I reckon they could have possibly pushed that a bit further. You know, got it a bit more dubby sounding. But yeah, there's a really funny falsetto bit in there that you know, you can't not love. And he sings in a higher range just before singing in a higher range.
He does. It's an unusual vocal take from Mez, one of many, but beautiful. DB, where do you stand on these two?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make this my last contribution before.
Feel free to play your hand as well. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. So, I really like Flooded. I think I really like both of these songs. I think I prefer that live version because there's a bit more texture and growl in there. But yeah, it's one of more. I quite like when Moussa Mars do kind of clubby stuff that's, you know, not inaccessible with a singer. I think this is a diamond example of it. However, Dearest Friends is, my comment that I wrote down is beautiful, play it forever. This is one of my favourite things with Marky Smith on, you know, full stop, fall or otherwise. Yeah, I just think, like, I mean, the African thing, I'd never heard it when I listened to it again today, but I think you're absolutely right there, Al. For me, it kind of, you said Americana. I was thinking it sounds like that kind of deconstructed Americana tradition, like it's like a gentle beef-art meets like your egg-headed Jim O'Rourke territory. And I just think but it does all that without, you know, sacrificing beauty and niceness and pleasantry. It's just a bloody good listen, and I wish it was 3 times as long because I love it. That's me for today. Peace out, gents. Let me know who wins.
Take it easy. Will do.
Matt.
For me, the Dearest Friends is cheeky. It's almost got a little bit of post rock mathish, but it's too simple for that. But it's got quite a lot of the sounds, the interconnected guitars, and they're sort of interlocked, which I guess is where we're coming from the like kind of Ali Farka kind of like deserty blues kind of like or kind of African blues kind of stuff, right?
I'd say there's definitely more going on in Dearest Friends than there is in Flooded, but for me, I don't know what it is about Flooded that's swayed me. In Dearest Friends, like Dan was saying, I could listen to it over and over again because it's a really, really nice tune, but I suppose it depends what mood you're in, and at the moment I'm in the mood for Flooded.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got a very sweet sentiment, Dearest Friends, as well, isn't it? Almost like saccharine, like he's just very straightforward to all my friends that I've liked. He doesn't really explain much more about it, but just again, Pumpkin Soups come up again for the second time because it's like you can have something stupid and schmaltzy, and Smith still makes it work. Like we said a bunch of times, right? For me, it was almost Drag City sort of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the sort of stuff I do. The Dearest Friends on some of the Drag City, kind of the lighter end of Drag City stuff. Kind of we talked about, obviously Red Crayola. We had Mel Thompson, and it's not too far away from a simplified kind of like David Grubb's kind of sound, but much simpler in many ways. For me, it's still bonus track material. It's the little cheeky song that someone puts on the end, like the B-side, and you're like, oh, it's brilliant. It's not where I'm going to first, which is Flooded, which I think is absolutely brilliant. MES, especially that live thing. I've done a couple of live shows that are similar to that. I did one with the Houston called F.A.L.L.O.U.T.P.O.D.C.A.S.T, which is very similar, but I'm no Marky Smith, and Smith nails it. And yeah, this is exactly like what the best fall songs do. They make like a bed for Smith, and he steps up, but the music itself is also brilliant. If we go back to Smile, it's like it's a perfect example. Flooded isn't quite at that level, but it does the same thing. They made a brilliant backing track, and Smith delivers a brilliant vocal, and what else can you ask for? And live, it's brilliant, and then it's also very funny. When he's talking about Sven Väth pissing the bed and needing a rubber sheet, and it's like, I know, some people go either way on comedy lyrics, but you and I are very much in the camp of like the stupider the better.
Yeah, if it puts a smile on your face, come on.
Exactly. I think I said something where I said, like, just imagine if this was the next Fall album after Levitate. Like, just imagine if they just carried on down the Levitate path, and this was, like, Flooded was the...
That would have been, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could have happened, but he didn't. He took the path into kind of what eventually led with the unutterable, right?
Well, it was when they were doing the Inch Door stuff around about that time, wasn't it? When they did Levitate, and you got
exactly right.
Yeah. So they were kicking out stuff like that. Anyways, band.
You could have switched out, like you did the Cold Cut and then into the Dose stuff, and then if you switched out, with Mouse on Mars come on the scene. They came on the scene not long after that. It was about 6 or 7 years, but let's imagine if, it's in another world. That's what the Fall's next album would have sounded like.
Parallel universe.
Exactly. Stuart says, Dearest Friends, more of those funky guitar samples and a lovely soup of sounds dwelling beneath the surface, has a really infectious pulse which oddly contrasts with a lyrical wistfulness that is treated to sound like it has a halo. Lovely stuff. Flooded, another straightforward banger like Fledermaus, and I have fun while listening to it, but the more I hear the Von Sud stuff, the more I like the sample heavy bliss and melancholy to the bangers. And he does have a point. It's like, if we just put all the bangers through and put all the like cheeky, silly things out, it's kind of, but you got to go with your heart, as we said, right?
Exactly.
Whereas Snur says, Dear friends, not sure I'm into these Von Suden filler spots, like something off Bombed, but without Hannett's heroin-fueled reverb overdose. Flooded, however. Flat Eric was cool, but with Smith singing lead vocals, I would buy 10 pairs of your shitty jeans, please. So beautiful stuff. All right, let's I think it's time for the final vote then, isn't it? So Stuart has gone Dearest Friends 50 and Flooded 2. So I'm giving Dear Friends 3 and Flooded 2. Yeah, which way are you going then, Al?
I'm going Flooded.
Yeah, Dan played his hand, didn't he? Because he did say that he really, really loved Dearest Friends, so he's gone that way, and I'm going Flooded. So we have gone back to the fingers, which means Stu's given Dearest Friends 3, and he's given Flooded 2. Dan's secretly, not so secretly, showed me his scored. So which way are you going for Dearest Friends? And
I think I've been persuaded now to change my mind because of what was said before about all the Von Suden stuff going through to the final. So I'm gonna change my mind.
All right. So you're going Flooded?
No.
Dearest Friends, as you just made very clear. So Dearest Friends, Stu's gone for Dearest Friends, Dan's gone for Dearest Friends. I am going for Flooded, but it doesn't matter. Dan did say 3 for Dearest Friends and 2.7 for Flooded. And Flooded is a sweet one, and I am glad to see that as we put Smith's spoken word out. Oh no, we put it through, so that's good. So all in all, justice has been served. A little bit of Smith's poetry, a little bit of the Von Sudenfeld sampledelic stuff, a banger, and the mutation stuff. So all in all, I think it was a successful,
a nice mixed bag.
Yeah, successful, nice big bag. So that means Wipe That Sound, Fledermaus, Mutation, PandaPanzer, and Dearest Friends are going into the final. And we will do the second semi-final. See, that wasn't so painful this time around, was it, Alistair?
Oh no, we've kind of filtered out most of the really painful stuff.
We've endured, yes. All right. So next week, onwards and upwards to the Funky Sci-Book. Hopefully with Danny on board. So as always, a pleasure, my friend. Take care.
Have a good week.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.